If you're drawing your 2020 elk tag, we know exactly what you're going through right now. So many questions and only so many days to get them answered. That's exactly why we're here, y'all. Last week, we began talking about the top 3 elk hunting concerns that we're getting from our listeners. And we started off with the big one, finding elk. We all know that finding elk is half the battle to being able to punch your tag. But tonight, we talk about the next 2 concerning areas, calling elk and knowledge of the hunting area. Your coaches talk about each of those areas and give you some points and tips and thoughts that you can use in this upcoming elk season. Those topics, along with our ElkBros shout outs and letters from our ElkBros mailbox. So my friends, pull up a chair, adjust your volumes just right, and welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting, brought to you by ElkBros.com, with your host Gilbert Ornelas and elk hunting coach Joe Gilliam. You want to hunt elk, and they live to hunt elk. Their goal is to share with you what they have learned grinding it out for over 35 seasons, doing what they love. So come on into camp and set a spell. Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunters.
Hello there, everyone. If it's your first time with us, glad to have you. Hope you enjoy the show. And for those blue collar hunters following our show and grinding it out with us every week, welcome back to Elk Camp. I'm Gilbert Ornelas coming to you from Spring, Texas, and from Katy, Texas, the one and only Luis Gonzalez, a member from the Venezuelan Mafia. And tonight, from Albuquerque, New Mexico, awaiting grandbaby number uno, Joe?
Yes, number 1, man.
Number 1 is your elk hunting coaches, Joe Gillia and Leroy Chavez. Welcome in the show tonight, guys.
Hey, I got a question.
Uh-huh.
How do I go from the leader of the Venezuelan Mafia to one of the leaders of the Venezuelan Mafia to now a member of the Venezuelan Mafia?
I like to keep everybody guessing.
I don't get this.
Y'all always having, these coups and takeovers, man. I like to keep everybody guessing, brother.
But I just don't see Manano anywhere. He never logs in. He doesn't even listen to the podcast. What the heck?
That's exactly how leaders operate, bro, man. They operate in the background.
They have all of their other guys that are underneath.
I'm going to start operating that way then. That's a good idea.
And hey, at least we didn't put you with the fishes, bro. So
exactly. Nobody's swimming with the fishes tonight.
So I just wonder what the next step is. I mean, if from a member down, all right, good. I'll stay tuned for the next show. That's for sure.
Well, I had a guy the other day that asked me, said, what is the deal with the Venezuelan Mafia? And I was like, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. So
everybody asked me, hey man, are those guys like the real deal? I said, you have no idea.
and I can't really tell you.
Yep. And I'm gonna let everybody know, like Gilbert said, right now, my daughter is actually in labor in the hospital here in Albuquerque. We were getting texts from her. Unbelievable, man. I mean, when my daughters were being born, the last thing I thought about was communicating with anybody, man. But my daughter, during her labor, was texting her mom and sending pictures and things like that. It's a whole different day, y'all. And but about 3:00, everything went dark. So, we've her mom's worried, and it's been a long time. We're going on 5 hours. We haven't had any word. So, during this podcast, my wife has instructions that when she has word, she's not going to worry about the podcast. She's going to let us know, and we'll handle it however we handle it, man. Right. So just want to let everybody know out there. So
talk about dedicated. Commitment. Man's having his first grandbaby, and we are bringing you viewers the elk content that y'all need to be successful this year. That's what I call dedication, brother.
Well, I appreciate y'all doing this, actually, because otherwise I'm sitting around just freaking out and twiddling my toes and stuff. So I'm actually a little
glad.
short fused tonight. I told Luis earlier, man, I'm just a little bit on edge, man. So
He's just a half a bubble off a plum, my
That's
dude.
right, Beto. So we need to watch out for them bad jokes today, Beto.
I know, man. I'm gonna leave them
Keep
all.
it light.
I'm gonna keep it light. We won't go, we'll go Beto Unleashed here.
and there's two things that I want to deal with before we get into the show. And one thing is, I know a lot of you guys are always asking and sending and saying, man, Chav, get better. And you see Chav here right beside me. He's been here for a while. And I mean, this guy's been going through a lot to get here. He, today, we have a little gym, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this guy gets up and he hits this gym every hour.
Yeah, at least every hour.
Yeah.
Or try to anyway.
And just get some walking and stuff in. And today, man, we were like, come on, dude, let's do this. And he, from the gym to the kitchen area, it's kind of a 90-degree turn, and it's probably, I don't know, probably 20, 25 yards from there to the, from his parallel bars, his physical therapy parallel bars where we've been training, all the way into the kitchen table. And it was dinner time, and I said, well, dude, let's go. And man, free walked it all the way, huh?
Yeah. Free is the key word.
Yeah, that's fantastic. He'll be running us down here in September, buddy.
Oh,
We were
man.
talking about
surprised.
this.
Like I told y'all earlier, I'm gonna go straight Nate Diaz when he does it.
Yeah,
It's
we were
I
talking
won't
about
repeat
this
what
earlier.
Nate said, but y'all know what he said. So
Yeah.
So totally
Wait.
appreciate all those,
Yeah, for sure.
all those people doing that. And the other thing, so here it is, y'all. It's been being asked for. Of the two things that have been being asked for, the first one is hitting, and that's going to be our Special Grinders limited edition of the ElkBros camo. It is going to happen. You will be seeing it on our website here directly. We'll be announcing it on Instagram. I'll be sending it out to our elk campers when that happens. It'll be a limited edition run, and what will happen is you will have to order and pay for your camouflage, and then we send the orders in. They get printed and sewn and then shipped out to you prior to this elk season, man. So that's going to happen. And we were going to be we're doing a short sleeve shirt like this one that you're seeing right now, and a long sleeve shirt. And what's the prices of those shirts, Luis?
So for the short sleeve, we're talking $32.50, and for the long sleeve, it's going to be $35.50.
$35.50, exactly. And I can tell you what, man, I do not discriminate from large to small. It's all the same price, man. So, if you're a 2X, 3X, I want you out in the woods in ElkBros camo, man. So we want you grinding away. And this is the first that we're doing. Our goal is to also, this is a dry fit material. This is a material that's a higher quality, and it will not fade. It's going to be with you.
And real quiet.
It's really quiet, and mine's got an athletic fit to it, but I have an athletic body.
he says that loosely. He's got that dad bod working, that granddad bod working. Here we go.
Pushing the limits of the truth around here now.
Hey,
Just like a great hunter.
I am a man of my own mind, man. So, but it's going,
it's going to be awesome, Joe. It's going to be awesome. My kids play in that fabric, and I'm telling you, it's lasted them for years. There's going to be some really good stuff that'll last for a long time. And
I'm excited, man. I really want to wear that ElkBros camo. I can't wait.
Yeah, man, I'm super stoked about it. So, it's a dream come true. Gilbert Ornelas and Scott have been the guys behind this and making this happen. And I tell you what, and we have some other works out there. Brother Zach Fisher has been working with me, and we're looking to do some other things that we can get some, so that I want these shirts in that price range in a cotton right around $25. So, and then we're going to even do some, we're going to have all different levels of it, man, whatever type of performance shirt. We're working on the pants, right, Gilbert? We're looking at pants as well. So guys, this is such an exciting time for us, man. You just don't know. I'm so happy I could friggin' pee all over myself. It's like elk season right now, man.
Hey, Joe, so remind me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you started showing us your ideas about the camo and the different perspectives about over a year ago, slightly over a year, or right about a year ago.
Yeah.
So, and you were showing us how you were thinking, how you wanted to blend in what's close and what's far, and just, you showed us the designs of what you were thinking about. And that's
absolutely
watching that from there to these shirts being ready and done and ready to go. It's pretty exciting.
Final product, yeah.
What's cool is the technology that's available to replicate his thoughts.
Yes.
You know, it's pretty cool. When Joe laid it down and I took it over to my man, Scott Hallmark, he hit it out of the park on just about the first run. And and I'm sure Joe's going to refine it a little more with him and stuff. But as far as where logos are placed or what it's going to say, or, things like that. But Scott's done a lot of work with me over the last 4 years, 5-6 years now. Time gets away, Joe. 5 or 6 years he's been building our jerseys, and he wanted in. He was like, man, he's the big time hunter himself, and he's like, I want in, and I definitely want to be able to try and help you guys bring your camo out to the marketplace. And the stuff that he's got is cool, man. He can do it all sublime,
It's awesome. And I mean, for him to do what he does as far as printing and sewing for this price point for our guys, man, it's phenomenal. I'm really excited about that. And I'm planning on actually the size, the logo, the ElkBros logo is going to go right there on the back of the neck, and thinking about putting the size runner right underneath that. So, So
Joe, can you talk a little bit about the giveaway that's going on?
So by the time people hear this, Gilbert, giveaway is done, man.
That's true.
We're doing this a week ahead. So, but I will say this, I tell you, the community, the businesses and the communities, the people that have their own podcasts, you take a look at Western Contours, Backcountry Rookies, that jumped in, the Where to Hunt podcast. And then we had top of the line. We had Phelps calls, man. We had Mile High No calls. We have Rocky Mountain Elk calls. We've got we've got the Ultimate Predator Decoy. We've got the outdoor knives, man, in Outdoor Edge knives. We've got I was so pumped to have Wasp Archery come in and throw in those Havilon broadheads, man. That was just so cool. I'm telling you what, if guys had their camo, their bow, and they had never hunted elk before, but they had their regular deer hunting equipment, and they got one of these packages, man, these packages could set them up. I mean,
no doubt.
Everything they friggin' needed. I mean, Base Map jumped in, and we're going to talk a lot more about Base Map in the upcoming podcast here. But our people at Base Map jumped in and gave year subscriptions to throw in these packages with the hunt app part of it attached to that. So really, that was even more value for that year. So, I mean, for all these people, and then, Trey Kistler comes in with $250 custom.
My homeboy who's rode the river with us, Joe. Comes in with two custom fishing rods.
Two custom fishing rods valued at $250 a piece. Bendable Products saw our giveaway and saw that it was the ElkBros, and they were like, we want to put something in there, man. So, and look, if you did not see our giveaway, it was a thank you. And, people look at it and like, wow, they're saying this is free to do. There's got to be a catch. There was no friggin' catch, man. We wanted to thank all you guys for helping us reach our 100,000th download. And at the same time, all we asked was for you to pledge. And our pledge was for you. It was very basic and simple, man. Our pledge was for you to pledge to do a random act of a kindness, no matter how small, for you to go home, look your child or children in the eyes and tell them you believe in them, to go out and look at a sunrise or a sunset and for a moment just take it all in. And we asked you not to ever follow the Elk Bros unless you believe in what we do and who we are. The only people we asked you to follow were those people and these incredibly generous people, businesses that put stuff in. So I know we got a lot of content to get through, but man, I tell you what, I am humbled and overwhelmed by the people. I mean, Freddie over at Game Changer, man, came in huge. I mean, everybody, guys.
Joe, when I read the pledge, I was so heart-filled.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, this is Joe for the world right there.
It's
Joe and
time
Chav.
that everybody needs it, Joe.
Yeah, and I was just like, man, this is so cool. So no, it couldn't be better put out there, Joe. So thank you for doing that, because it does make us all reflect a little bit on our day-to-day lives.
I just, in a society where we're at today, where we're so divisive and so at unrest, if you just help your neighbor out and love your neighbor, man, things will be a lot better.
Absolutely, man. Amen, bro.
And it don't matter who it is, just help them. We got to get back to that. This country was built on that. We got to get back to helping one another.
And it's all a ripple effect. People don't realize that, man. You pay it forward just a little bit, and it starts with one, man.
Like
the
fire.
fire.
It forward. It starts with one. Well, guys, y'all know what time it is. It's time for the Elk Pros shout-outs. If you're new to our show, these are just shout-outs to a few cities with the most listeners, topping our charts this week.
And shout-outs to those grinders giving us such great reviews. Get it, Bob Jefferson out of South Dakota, and
that's right.
And I believe he said, and I hope I got that right. That was out of South Dakota, man. I get writing some of this stuff down. And he said, buddy, if you're not listening to this podcast, you're doing it wrong. I love that. That was awesome, man. Thank you, Bob, man.
He was passionate about it. You bet.
Yep. Jeff Stroop out of Philly, Pennsylvania. Chris McKelvey, man, out of Santa Rosa. And the first time I saw Chris, I was like, Santa Rosa, New Mexico, man? It's like, no, Santa Rosa, California. Matthew said he is from Southern Missouri in the house. He said,
see there? Missouri.
Southern Missouri in the house. He's from Ava, Missouri. And Jeff Barlow out of Price, Utah. And if you guys don't recognize that name, Jeff Barlow, you can find him on Instagram as Nimrod. He's Nimrod Outdoors out there. So cool. I thank all you guys for your great reviews. And so let's get into the shout outs, man.
Okay, this week's top listening city was established in the 1940s, where cattle ranches dominated the area until the 1920s. It is actually a neighborhood suburb right in the middle of Tucson and the Oro Valley. Residents love walking in the Pima Canyon Wash, where the desert squirrels and plentiful birds make you feel like you're not really in a city at all. And after a hot day outside, Mr. Ann's, is it Mr.?
Yeah, Mr. Ann's.
Mr. Ann's happy hour is a go-to favorite for family and friends. A big elk shout out to Casas Adobes in Arizona.
Casa Adobes, Arizona. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Never been
all
there,
right.
But I know where I'm going to happy hour if I do, man.
Yeah, man. Going to Mr. Ann's.
Yeah. Up next.
Next one up. Founded by homesteaders in 1876, the settlement that began our next top listening city took its name from the nearby creek. The fast-flowing Spearfish Creek carried fish that were speared by various Indian tribes that occupied the region before white settlement. Famous for its beauty, nature, history, and adventure of the Black Hills, the Spearfish Canyon was the location for several scenes in the epic Kevin Costner movie, Dances with Wolves. Spearfish, South Dakota. Man, I love that movie. That movie is one of the best
South Dakota's in the
ever.
house all over the place, huh, man?
South Dakota in the house.
And
Bob
Tatanka,
Jefferson's place.
right?
Tatanka. Tatanka. Heck
Danza
yeah.
con Lobos. I watched it in Spanish for the first time when I was
Oh,
like, I don't
really?
know, 14, 13. Yeah.
Man, yeah, Tatanka. How can you not remember all that? And I love Kevin Costner as an actor.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
That was an incredible movie.
We'll throw him a shout out because he's in a show called Yellowstone now that I hear is pretty awesome.
Oh yeah.
It is amazing.
Is it good?
Oh my gosh, you got if you haven't watched the first two seasons,
They just started second season, right?
They
The
started
second
the third season.
season. Third.
Oh,
Okay.
There's
Awesome,
two
man.
seasons out there.
I'm a buyer, man. I'm the Huckleberry.
Look, I'm telling you, it is off the chain good. It's one of my favorite shows, for sure. For sure. Well, up next, guys, our next top listening city's name is an Ojibwe word meaning place where they watch. Keep a lookout. Originally owned by the two daughters of a Sioux chief, it wasn't until they agreed to sell land to local farmers and landowners in the late 19th century that the city was born. Lucky today for Wisconsin football fans, if you're a Packers fan, the Green Bay Packers outdoor practice field and indoor facility, the Don Hudson Center, are proudly located right here in Ashwaubenon, Wisconsin.
So, first of all, Wisconsin, thanks, man. I mean, we see Wisconsin plates all over the place in the mountains. Those guys are like dedicated hunters, number one. But secondly, Gilbert, man, I would have been like, I'd have gone through that name like Ashwaubenon. I'd have just like
I ain't gonna lie, guys. I had to look it up. It says Ashwaubenon. So
Ashwaubenon.
And I believe that is the name for the Sioux chief of the daughters that controlled that land. So you talk about powerful women in history. That Sioux chief's daughters held on to that land when the American government was trying to purchase and take land, and they weren't having it, man. They held control of it until they sold it. So, yeah, pretty cool, man.
Ashwaubenon's just really a suburb of Green Bay. It's sitting right there off of Lake Michigan, and it's a really, really old part of their town. So, pretty cool history for sure.
Wisconsin in the house. Thanks, y'all. Next up, listening city's name is derived from a local Native American term meaning lone tree by the fishing place. And it's so cool, man. Have you noticed how much of these Midwest and all these, most of these places have the roots with the Native American names? I think that's just awesome, man. And originally referred to a specific tree along the river in the area of modern-day Beacon Falls. Because of the area's rocky soil, it wasn't any good for farming, but the high potential for water power, the Naugatuck Valley became an industrialized area in the 19th century known primarily for its rubber production and for manufacturing. And man, I think every vehicle seat was made out of this.
Man.
Naugahyde, right?
Naugahyde, yeah.
Naugahyde, a synthetic leather material. And this happened in Naugatuck, Connecticut.
That's where Naugahyde came from. That's pretty cool, Joe.
Man.
Had no clue.
I should have given this one to Luis, man.
Yeah.
Fun with that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm smiling back here because I'm like, yeah.
Well, hey, it's not over yet. You're last up, bro. So we're not done yet.
I know, and it's
right.
we'll
We
see how it
always save
goes.
the best for last.
So originally called Elysian Grove Plantation, and then Kane City. One of the coolest historical facts is that back in 1874, a local judge secured a charter to build a visionary and peculiar road. He built the first all-weather, year-round turnpike in the South. He built a shed 9 miles long with a highway under it, known as the Shed Road. it was a huge success and the main line of transportation until the railroad lines took over. Bossier City, Louisiana.
Louisiana.
In the house.
Yes, sir.
All my brothers to the east are in the house from Bossier City.
We just gave a shout out to Politz over there in Louisiana, man, in Lafayette, right?
Lafayette,
Go ahead, Luis.
right.
What are you gonna say?
Well, no, I'm just saying that I had to practice that shed because, it's easy for us South Americans to mispronounce that, and it could have gone quickly unleashed here.
Kind of like beaches.
Yeah, that's right.
So did anybody grasp this? That my wife accuses me of overbuilding things all the time, right?
Yeah, that's overkill, huh?
This is 1874, and this guy built a shed 9 miles long to cover the highway, man.
That's a lot of timber.
Holy
Of course, up in that country, they had it. I mean, that Bossier area is part of East Texas, part of, western Louisiana, northwestern Louisiana. I mean, it's Bossier City's right on the Red River.
But we're talking 1874. Can you imagine? I mean, these guys don't have heavy equipment.
Unbelievable.
Think about what it took manpower-wise to be able to do a road, first of all, road, and then to put a shed over that road for 9 miles. Let me tell you what, man. My hat is off. Tip of the hat from the ElkBros to Bossier City.
Talk about dedication to a project right there.
My
it's like,
Lord,
man, I would have been done after the first mile. Like, screw this.
All right, let's get into it, man. Let's talk about some elk content.
Sounds good, brother.
So last week, so the topic of tonight was we were talking about, we've been getting all these emails in, and everybody, a lot of these questions were the same type of things, man. They were concerns that people have, and we broke them down into 3 areas. And last week we talked about finding elk. And this week the big concerns were over calling elk, like the what, when, and why, recommended calls, our philosophy, and the knowledge of the hunting area, how, what to expect, what they need to know, how to get that info. So we're going to try to talk about those 2 this evening, hoping to get that done. But I can tell you, I was just on a podcast with Backcountry Rookies, and Chad, who did the interview with me, Chad Riker, he came out with this immediately, man. It was like, his questions were about, I go to an area and I have no idea where the elk are. How do I go about finding them? And, we talked a lot about that last week. And if we need to talk about that again, if we didn't answer it well, we'll hit it again, man. But if you get a chance, listen to that interview with Chad as well, because we hit that. And then the other thing was on calling elk. He was really like, I really, if I'm there, what calls do I start with? When do I start calling? I mean, he literally, he asked me, Chad, he was like, when should I be a mile out of camp? Should I be a half mile out of camp? And really, to me, these are things that we take for granted.
Right.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
But, to so many guys, they're like, well, when do I start calling? So, that question about how far you need to be out of camp before you start calling. Mm-hmm. How would you answer that?
Start calling right away.
Right away.
Right away.
It could be next door.
Yeah, that could be behind the first set of trees you see, or behind a ridge, close by to camp. Because sometimes during the course of the day, they'll even run right by camp. So you got to be ready right off the bat.
I'm telling you, being an old big boy from Canada, Steve Tucker with Carl Gamage, and we shut the mule down, stepped out of the mule. I strapped my backpack on. Steve strapped his on. Carl grabbed the smoke pole. We were using the muzzle loader, and Carl looked at me and he goes, "Go ahead and make a cow call." So I cow called, and I'm telling you, I thought the bull was going to run us over, Joe.
Right.
I mean, he was literally right behind the mule in some jack pines. I mean, Steve Tucker to this day feels like he thought we had planted a speaker over there and made it come on so everything would be cool. He just didn't think it was real. I mean, you get off a bike and I mean, less than 60 yards from you, this bull just erupts, So, yeah, I mean,
you never know.
Camp, if you hunt out of camp, man, you start calling.
Yeah, you never really know, where they're at. I remember when Joe and I drove, was it morning or afternoon?
It was the afternoon.
I want to say afternoon. We drove we had a Nissan 4x4 we called Blackie. And it was an old Nissan, 1987 model, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
Anyway, we parked and we just slammed the door, and it made a creaking noise when we slammed the door, like, "Erk!" And all of a sudden, a bull bugles off, about 100 yards away.
I mean, he didn't just bugle. This was a challenge. I mean, like, yeah! He just went berserk on us.
And we had just rumbled our way to that spot before we parked, so we made a lot of noise.
Yeah, well, we actually, so all transparency, we were a little off-road lost. So we got out just to see where we were, and I slammed the truck door because I was all pissed. And man, we get a bull screaming at us right away. And in fact, Gilbert, not very far from where you killed your bull that year with Tucker.
Just below there.
Yeah, just right below that. So, no, and the thing that I tell people is, we as humans have this thing that we're like, well, elk should not be in this area because I've camped there, or I just got done driving, so they're going to hear the vehicle and they're not going to answer. And look, I like to, once I get off an ATV, because I'll drive to an area and then we'll start from there. That's how we get to a certain zone and then start on foot. I like to just sit down and listen for a while because I love to hear the woods wake up, but and just let things get quiet, relax. But man, I'm telling you, man, just because you have a camp there, don't think that elk are not around that camp. In fact, we've heard them come by our camp bugling at night. They work right by us. So what I tell a lot of people
last year, not last year, 2 years ago, Manano and I decided to go hunt on foot out of camp, and we left just the first light. I think you guys got on the bikes and went hunting, and then we stayed at camp and just walked out of camp.
Right.
We hadn't walked 100 yards to the north of camp, and we saw elk. There were cows crossing the road, and they were walking towards camp, and they walked right behind camp.
Right.
And so, I mean, it just,
no, that's a huge point. And one thing that I tell people too, when you get up in the morning in your camp, don't go banging stuff, man, and start getting all loud and everything, because, we've even been out hunting all day. We get back, we're walking into camp, and I don't know why I do it, but I always crank off a bugle, and we have one respond right there, man, out of camp. We'll go out and we had an opportunity just like that. So, guys, understand that elk are where they are, and people think that they just disappear when they catch a human scent or they hear a bike, and when I say bike, I mean like an ATV or UTV, something like that, or a truck, and they don't. Especially, again, you always hear me talk about high use areas, all right? And they get used to that, and they're very intelligent. They are adaptable critters. They really are. So if you're in a place and they choose to come near you, even though they smell you, they smell it from a far distance. They don't see it as a threat, and they will go by it, or the wind's just right that they haven't smelt it until they get close to it. So that's just something for you to think about right there. Okay. So right away. And one thing I tell people is they're like, well, okay, so how do you go about calling? I'm going to tell you my technique. And here's what I do. When I start calling, I always start with cow calls. And you'll hear a lot of people that say that they don't cow call. They don't cow call early season. They don't think it's effective. They don't do as much cow calling. I always cow call first. I don't care if it's early season, late season. It's going to be the same strategy. Early season, I can actually do it just a little longer, a little deeper. Sounds like a bow call and not a cow. That's a bull mew. okay? And bulls will communicate with each other, and they will come in to check each other out early season. So I always start with that, because it can either be perceived by those animals as a bull or as a cow, all right? And the way I do that is I always, when I start calling, I check my zone near to far. So when I first cow call, I'm just using my reed in my mouth close up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's usually 3 cow calls. I'll throw them in different directions, one a little short, one a little longer, just add some variety to it. And I will check. That gives me a chance to listen. Do I get a response early on, anywhere close? And a response can be a amount of things. And guys, the first thing I tell people is don't always think a response is a bugle. There's all kinds of responses out there. There's a response that you can get from a cow that responds back to you, a bull that mews back to you, that you get a bull that bugles back to you, you get a bull that starts raking a tree, or grunts or chuckles, okay? Or just comes in silent and you hear them coming into you. So we've heard all of those things when they're out there. All of those are responses. Now, if I don't get a response near, then what I do is I now stick with the cow call, and I will go through my grunt tube and I will throw it in different directions. The wind is in my face because, or it's parallel to me. I would rather, when I don't know where animals are, my strategy is to go, not parallel, I'm sorry, perpendicular to the wind. I want a crosswind. Okay. And the reason I want a crosswind is as I move through areas, and I have areas below me, if the wind's coming there, then those animals that could possibly be moving through there, I'm going to catch your scent. If I catch your scent, dude, I'm on it, right? That tells me something right there. Now, as I'm moving perpendicular to that, I can smell from one side, I can see forward and off to the other side before my scent hits it. So that gives me a little bit of an advantage. That's how I work it. There's a big tip for you. Now, if I don't get a response after throwing it through my grunt tube, now I'm going to throw out a location bugle. And that location bugle is going to be just, because it's a near to far, I'm going to throw a decent one out. I'm going to throw out a 3-toner. You know, just, I'm not going, and guys, a lot of you guys, when you throw out location bugles, you take way too long to get to the high pitch. And it's not, man. Yeah, Luis raising his hand back there. Man, it's just like, you hear how quick I got there? All right. It does not take a long time. And you just get up to it. When you come back down with the with your voice, you can do that when you're doing the near to far. Now, if I don't get a response to that location bugle, screw anything. I'm just going straight to my high pitch, and I am broadcasting all the way from Toledo, Ohio, back around to California, man. And I'm just sending a high pitch because that's all they're going to hear out there.
It's pretty cool, Joe. The other a quick question. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no, go ahead, man.
You know, I would have thought that a longer bugle to get to the high note, because it's slower, it would kind of show a more mild bugle, more of a location type bugle. And maybe that's a misconception I have. If I go straight to the high pitch really quick, and I'm thinking if that bull is relatively close, would that bull interpret that bugle as a location bugle? If I go quick, would it be more aggressive? Would that have anything to do with the feeling of the bugle if you go to it
what
faster?
What makes a bugle aggressive is the inflection you add to it, and the
raspiness of it.
Yeah, the raspiness and the velocity of it. Now, when I am going up to that tone, I'm going up to a high pitch, but it's a pretty pitch. It's a relaxed pitch, right? It's not. And actually, the shorter that you get into it. Now, when I say shorter, I mean that when that bugle's only 2 to 3 seconds and you scream that real quick, that's an aggressive bugle. 5 to 6 second where you just get up to that tone and you just let that tone send, man, that is just a location or advertising bugle. It's about it's about the length of that bugle. When you do a roundup bugle is only like a second and a half, 2 seconds. A challenge bugle is only that 2-3 second screaming something, right?
Okay. So yeah, the length of it may have to do a little bit with what the message is then.
But,
if you
but when you start doing,
but
when you start doing, it's not natural, man. They don't do that. They just they just don't do that, man. They're going they're bringing it from their belly and just getting it out from their diaphragm, man. So you get that.
Most time it's no more than 3 seconds.
I wish I had my calls with me so I could do that, but I'm in Albuquerque, y'all, man. We're doing this, but
90% of the time a bull won't be longer than 3 to 4 seconds, man.
No,
those longer ones, like you said, are those location ones.
And really, those are only about 4 seconds long, man. Mine are gonna be longer because I want that tone to ring out for a long time. I'm giving them a chance to hear it, right?
Broadcasting,
yeah. I'm just broadcasting, man. So
that's one of the ways I kind of can tell whether it's a hunter or not when you're hunting public land. You get an 8 to 10 second bugle, that I've never heard a bull go that long.
Yeah. Now,
but I have heard some guys, belt a bugle out that long and then, got some fringe on the end of it.
But we've heard some pretty musical.
Yeah. Oh, there's some beautiful bugles.
I have.
Where you hear all three tones. And,
melodious.
Yeah. And you
2 years ago in our other camp there at night, they were going off every night, and it was very harmonic. It just sounded very beautiful.
But it's still not this 1 second one tone, 1 second another tone. It's not like that, man. It just flows right up into it. Okay,
I agree.
Oh,
what was that?
I'm like, get your bug. That's all on point, Joe.
What's that?
That's all on point. You got the coyotes outside or what, Joe?
What's going on, man?
Well, I heard cheering in the other room, and I'm on edge right now about the granddaughter, man. So, it's when I heard the cheering, and they're in there cheering for a puzzle. I know, otherwise she'd have busted through that door right there. So, I was going to go check on things for me.
All good.
But the other thing I want to tell people too, another point, what, when, why, and recommended calls in our philosophy. My philosophy, like I've taught both of you guys and I've taught Chav, is that, you're a lover before a fighter, right?
Always.
So that's going to be cow calls that are going to happen. And by doing the lover before a fighter, it lets me build into other scenarios. If I introduce a cow and then now I bring in a bull that is starting to display or that is starting to rake and doing those different things, now I can actually create a scenario because that cow has been introduced, and it's like a bull that is coming in to pick up that cow. So I'm always a lover for a fighter, man. I mean, you're going to catch
to the point of building on that you mentioned. You've talked about this before, and I love that concept because when you start as a lover, it gives you room to kind of sense the situation. You put feelers out there and how the thing is going to really escalate, and you may end up. You have the room to actually build up to a fighter if you need to in order to get that bull's attention. But if you start out as a fighter, you don't have the option to come back as a lover to bring that bull back. If whoever you're trying to bring is not in the fighting mood, they're going to flee. And you've said that before, and I love that concept.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, again, when you walk into a bar, man, and what's going to attract the guy come to is going to be the sweet talk. And, when I have another guy start talking to the girl, then I might get a little bit upset and warn him off, but then I'm going to turn my focus back to the girl, and that's going to tick off the guy that's trying to, communicate. So, the thing is if you follow that and you always handle that, like you said, you can always escalate. And I like to escalate once I get a bull worked up. I don't want to That's the problem with guys, man. I bet girls are a lot better out in the woods calling elk because they got a whole lot more patience than we do. We get there, man, and we get a bull to respond to us, and immediately we're like, "Wow!" I mean, we're like, we're like, "Come on, let's fight, bro, let's fight!" And because we want that bull to come in, it's throwing snot, wide-eyed, and everything, and it doesn't always happen that way, man. If they are not in that mode, or you can actually do exactly what a bull's trying to do. You could intimidate and scare that guy away, So that's not your goal. Your goal is to kill that booger. So that's one thing for you to think about.
I think too, Joe, it depends on which bull you're hunting too. If you're hunting a big herd bull and he's got a ton of cows with him, now I'm really talking to his cows.
Absolutely, Gilbert.
Not so much talking to him, but I'm talking to his cows because I want them to come to me. And if the cows will come to me and I can get between him and the cows, it's a done deal.
That's the biggest mistake. You hit the nail on the head, Gilbert, man. Is the biggest mistake guys make when they have a herd bull is they challenge the herd bull. Well, he's had challengers for how many days, man? He's
going to round them up and head up as high as he can go and get away from everybody.
And that's all he's going to do. But you start talking to his ladies, you start displaying for them, you try to pull them to you. Here's the mistake I think everybody makes is even preseason, man. We got guys out there with game cameras right now that they're looking for bulls out there. Where are the bulls at in the summer? Well, you might find where they're at in August, but that is not where they're going to be in September. What you should be trying to get on your game camera, and I know it's not as hot and cool and everybody's not going to look at it, but you need to find where those cows are, because where those cows are is where those bulls are going to be. And everybody thinks that the bull is running the show. And if you haven't heard us before and you don't know it by now, man, it is not the bulls that run the show. And all I'm going to ask you guys, man, how many of you guys really think you're running the show in your house? Man, if you do, you're fooling yourself. Huh?
Yeah, you're just lying to yourself.
You're just lying to yourself.
Hey, everybody knows happy wife, happy life.
Absolutely.
Manano's the only one that thinks that way.
oh, man. So
Joe, for me too is I'm not necessarily hunting I think guys need to tailor this to what type of bull they're hunting, because I'm not always hunting a herd bull. If I happen onto one, okay, great. I know how to make that happen, but I'm looking for a bull that's going to play ball. I don't give a dang if he's a 5x, a 4x, a spike. I mean, it really doesn't matter to me. I like to eat elk meat. Not
or a cow that was willing to come.
Cow. Not everybody's going to be that way, right?
Right.
So I think you need to understand when you're calling to satellite bulls, it's a little bit different than when you're dealing with a herd bull. So, but at the end of the day, you hit it right on the head. Is you got to be a lover before you be a fighter. And there's a time to be a fighter, but boy, it's you run the risk of really damaging. Making that guy bug out before you ever get started.
Well, that's where, and there's a lot of guys that's their philosophy. Their philosophy is to scream challenges till they find that bull that wants to play. But for
you might have to go through a bunch of them.
Yeah, but for us, man, I mean, we're that's that one bull out of 10. And we want opportunities after the other 9. So that's what we're doing. And I think another point that we need to make is that a lot of people associate with what I say calling aggressively and as being challenging and wanting to fight. And I want you guys to understand calling aggressively and challenging are 2 different things. You follow me with that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think you've brought that up in the last couple of podcasts.
Yes.
Very clear. Aggressively, it's about your stance on how you want to pursue that communication versus not trying to be intimidating to the animal through the calls.
Absolutely. It's more about frequency. It's more about use. It's more about always staying involved, trying to make something happen. That's what that's about. So a lot of people, when I say aggressive, they associate that with me screaming at an animal, me being, challenging and just really punching out there. And that's not what it is. So I want people to understand that there's a difference between being an aggressive caller and challenging a bull, engaging a bull. Most of the time, we are not engaging a bull unless that bull is in the mode to be engaged. That changes the game. And you will know that by how quick they close the distance and what kind and the way that they are calling and challenging back at you. All right. And I also tell people, to help yourself out, if you don't have any idea, again, about how fast and how hard to go, mimic what that bull is doing. All right.
That's right. That'll, man, a lot of times that'll infuriate them.
Yeah,
you
they don't
step
like
on
that.
them, do what he's doing. Ooh, they don't like that. But Joe's right.
Like
You got to find them. Joe's right. You got to find out what pushes their button, and when you figure it out, you could zone right in on it.
Okay. Gilbert, my wife's here with a little bit of information. You guys keep going for me there on the points. I'll be right back.
Cool. Well, as we go through this, hopefully we got a grandbaby on the way and everything's good and the news is good. Anyhow, Luis, I can harken back several different times that we've hunted with Joe and with Chav as well. Chav's always led me into being a softer caller at first. And then once we get a bull fired up, we start stepping on him, so what Joe was talking about was listening to the way the bull projects back to you, and the more frequency that he projects back to you. Yeah. I harken back to Chav and I crawling that peak one time and having those two bulls, the two herds meet. And I'm telling you, every time was epic. It was. Every time I would cow call, this bull would just, come unglued, and I would challenge him, and oh my gosh, it was like the Red Sea was going to part, and then another bull below us started going off, so it was really the perfect storm. But had I not listened to Chav, and when he said, "Hey, get right back at him when he bugles," oh my gosh, it was epic. I learned really quick how to discern how a bull was talking to me just because of the experiences I've had. Right. But a lot of our listeners haven't had that experience. Right. So, for them, you've been in just a new caller as well. So I'm sure that the first time a bull has sounded off to you and talked to you, you're like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
You was like, what do I do now? Yeah. I was like, what did you say?
It's like speaking Spanish and English. First time you figure it out, you're like, wow, that was pretty cool, So you want to speak the language.
Yeah, that roadmap, man, I think that the way he's laid it out with the first initial points is like, hey, look, you want to start broadcasting in a radius from close to far away. Start with a cow call and then just start broadcasting towards the end. That gives you a very good segue into, now when you do hear a response, and if you do hear a response, then what do you do? So mimicking is, if you're starting out, probably your best go-to option at that point. And also, understanding that aggressiveness is not just being aggressive on the call, it's just being aggressive in trying to make a lot of calls. The other points that he's got listed is that, hey, we can not hearing a bugle in return doesn't necessarily mean that we're not getting a response out of our calls. Right. And that goes together with the next one, which is like, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not bugling or that they're not interacting. It means that we may not be hearing them. They may be coming in sidling, but they also may be just wrecking tree or just approaching. So it's always so important to listen. When you're actually broadcasting, you're listening, you're quiet. And that's one of the things, look, when we were with Joe, one of the first things he told us was, hey guys, listen, here's some ground rules. When I make some cow calls and I'm not walking and I stand up and I make a bugle, it's time for everybody just to stay still. not
Be
move.
quiet.
And we're just going to be quiet and we're going to listen.
Yeah, don't be digging in your pack and making all
Exactly.
kinds
It's
of
not
racket.
the time to be searching to grab some water and making that noise with the bottle or anything like that, because you're missing the point of, he's trying to reach
grabbing
out
your
there.
M&Ms.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
I've also noticed sometimes with Joe will chuckle, when they're not
Yes.
bugling, and
Yeah.
you'll get a return chuckle, and it works the same way with the bugle. Imitate that chuckle, and it seems like they really hate that. And we've had bulls come in angry because they're because Joe is mimicking their chuckle, so
And
that works too.
sometimes I found that some of those bulls, for some reason, when they're not really lit up, they will chuckle before they will bugle. So a lot of times going out there, sometimes when I get that feeling that that's happening, I won't bugle. I will just chuckle. I'll just throw a chuckle out there. And because a chuckle is not an aggressive bull sound. When you grunt, when you growl, that's more
aggressive.
demanding. But a chuckle, when you get that, it's not a.
The first time I heard that, I was like, "There's no way that's a bull, Joe. That sounds like a freaking monkey." And Joe's eyes went this big. I was like, "That's a bull. Get ready!" And I was like, "Why? Are you serious?" I was like, "Yeah, get ready." So I was like, "Wow, that was crazy."
Yeah, I never. It's been a couple years back when I killed a bull. The next day, I forgot my hat, and me and Chav went back up there. All we had was it's when we had the bear encounter too, but all we had was a grunt tube with us, and we found, I don't know, 7 or 8 bulls and a bunch of cows and spikes and stuff like that. And it probably was at least 20 minutes that we got into a chuckle off with 3 different bulls. And I mean, he'd chuckle, we'd chuckle. And man, it was incensing him. I mean, he'd stomp around there, man. It's like, where is that son of a gun? And he'd chuckle, I'd chuckle. The cows all came towards us too. The cows were all moving. That's what I'm talking about. If we'd have wanted to kill one of those bulls, it was slam dunk. I mean, it was easy because we had the cows coming to us, didn't we, Chad?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the point you guys should get from this is that, there's not always a particular silver bullet, man. There's not something that always lights them up. You'll find that different parts of the season and different animals will respond to different things. So, don't think that just because you give out a bugle and you don't get nothing, that there's nothing happening. It might take a cow call. It might take a chuckle. It might just take raking, man, and to have something respond to you. So, you have to find what pushes the button at that time. And it's just exploring and enjoying yourself while you're out there, experimenting with that different stuff, man. So we better, we're about 56 minutes in right now. So let's head to knowledge of the hunting area and let's talk about that.
Got one other thing.
Yeah, go ahead,
Joe. Luis mentioned it just now, and it's that, man, in the early season, I think this thing really pays big dividends. It did for us this past season, and it's using that lost cow call, especially early season, man. I don't know what it was, but every time we do it, it blew those bulls' minds, and they would travel long and far distances to come and find that cow that's lost.
And I really think it had to do with the scenario that was around it at the time as well.
But it almost worked effectively on every scenario that we had. So I think it was time of the year, no doubt. And I think early, if you guys are out there hunting that early season, don't forget to try that, give it a shot.
And I think it ties perfectly with this no silver bullet comment, right? I mean, because we just, you got to keep trying until find something that works.
I guarantee you, I got it in my hip pocket.
If you've never heard the lost cow call, to me, it compares a lot with a predator call. It's almost like a wee, wee. It's really high pitched. It's long, and, it just really goes out, awesome. Man. So, it's just something to have in there. So let's head to knowledge of the hunting area because guys are concerned about that. And yeah, they're like, what to expect, how, what do they need to know, how can they get info on the area? And there's going to be two ways you can get info, man. Oh, actually, well, there's multiple ways, but the best ways are when you do your e-scouting and communicating with other people about areas. Either you're dealing with biologists or you're going to Game and Fish, and you're finding out like the numbers. Like in New Mexico, if you find out the numbers of tags given to certain ranches, those ranches are given a certain number of tags because of the amount of elk that are in the area. If you're seeing large acreage with limited elk tags, that kind of tells you something right there. If you're seeing smaller acreages than some of the other ones that are giving a lot of tags out to those landowners, then that kind of tells you a message right there. Now, that's just New Mexico, but looking at other states, man, especially Colorado, they do all kinds of stuff through their Division of Wildlife that you can get information. I mean, they even show you elk migration routes in their state, which is, I don't think a lot of people pay attention to that. And that's huge because that route is showing you what they're doing from summer to winter, man. And, I mean, that's really, really huge there. So that kind of information, or actually getting boots on the ground to get information. And, I had some points here that I want to throw out real quick. Is that point number one, guys, is I want you to understand something, that when you e-scout, and when I talk about e-scouting, the things that you want to find out about your hunting area is not only like looking for food possibilities, or looking, and it's hard to tell the food from e-scouting, man, other than you can find open parks and areas that are down low, that are near water. And if you have that, it's going to have some decent food down in the bottom of those drainages. But when you look for your water sources, and when you look for those bedding areas that are the thick timber areas, generally on the northeast facing areas. So when you look at that and you try to find that trifecta and you circle that, like when we were talking about finding elk, not only do you want to find that, but I'm telling you what's key is zoom in, get your base map app, get that high res map on that, zoom in, and buddy Joe, you can see old logging roads, you can see trails, you can see old two-track. And what I would do is, if I were you, is I would take my line tool, I would give that a specific color, and I would mark every one of those two-tracks, every one of those trails. I would give it a name, whether it's a two-track, whether it's a trail, whether it's an old logging road. I would label those and have them. And I would know,
I did that last year.
Yeah. I would know every road in the area of the hunting area, every trail that I could mark in there, because when you do that, it gives you key. If it's an accessible road, like an ATV trail, I would put those on a certain color. If it is a dirt road that is access to an area.
Make the map and the colors and the legend work for you, Joe. I agree 100%. There is a place where we hunt public land here for pigs. I love going there. It's huge. It's over 3,000 acres.
Right.
And it's super complex because it's very thick, and it's a lot of water runs through it. And so there's creeks and rivers, and well, it's not really rivers, but I mean, they're big creeks, and it's got canyons, and the place is pretty non-friendly. And so doing the e-scouting like you're mentioning right now has been extremely critical for me. And guys that I've met out there in the public land, they ask me, it's like, well, I don't know how to get, I was like, I pull up my maps on my phone and I'm like, man, there's a creek here. I know you can't go through here. There's a passage here. And most of that stuff I've been able to do the e-scouting and then boots on the ground and matching the two. And I was like, yeah. One day I remember I was looking for a junction of where 3 river or 3 creek lines met. And I was like, called it the junction, like you said. And I started walking to that point. One day I said, I want to get to that point to confirm that that's actually a junction of those 3 creeks. And there was actually 4 merging at that point when I actually got there, boots on the ground. So,
It's invaluable.
What you're saying.
What I like to do is when I'll mark trails. I'll mark those timber cut roads and stuff like that in one color, and then I'll mark the ones that are accessible that people can use with a motorized vehicle in a different one. And the reason I do that is, in order for me to find a honey hole, I want to find, if I'm in an area like that, I want to find an area that has at least 2 miles to the center between two access points if possible, right? Because, I'm not looking for something 4 miles, 5 miles, 6 miles. All I'm looking for is a hole between accessible areas that is about 2 miles off of those roads. I'm telling you, you go 800 yards off that road, you never hear any vehicles on them. You go a mile in off that, they're not going to see most people because most people do not hunt gutsy, right? And
exactly.
And that's one thing that we were always, in our camp, we all used Onyx, right? And
we did.
When you have Onyx, so that when you have data, the maps would be very, very detailed when you had data. They would be a little slow, or you couldn't get it in certain places. But the problem I had is when I started downloading my offline maps, I couldn't get the detail that I got from those. And so a month ago, I switched to base maps. And one of the main reasons is because their downloadable map, I can control the amount of detail, how big I want the map to be, depending on my memory on my phone. But Budro, I can go in and I can see doggone, I can see logs.
Yeah, I downloaded 2 gigs worth of map. I mean, it's big,
Yes,
So it's a big file.
The download has a lot of detail because of the size of it, for sure.
Right.
It took a while for me to download my stuff, too.
That's exactly, I want to see exactly where I'm at and be able to see those trails down inside there because it tells me something, right? So, that's one thing that I would tell you guys is when you are doing that kind of e-scouting, if you really want to know the knowledge of your area, know any and every way to get in there. And when you know how other people getting in there, you can find those little honey holes in there. Okay. And that's a real good one.
I'm the same way. I'm giving it a shot, Joe. I'm kind of like, learning the system now. It's got a lot of different tools in there. It's got
it's complex.
It's got a lot of maps, and if you're concerned about getting all your data moved over from one Onyx to base maps, is extremely simple. Really, you export everything in one file on your desktop. And then from base map, you will import everything from that one same file, and everything goes in there.
Absolutely.
So can you do it on your phone, or do you got to do it off your computer?
I didn't try on my phone, Beto. I did do it on the desktop, and it was super simple.
With your phone plugged in?
No, you don't need to. You just need to go into your account.
Anything that you import into your desktop app
goes automatically to your phone.
Goes all the way to your
it's live. It's live syncing.
Okay.
So whatever you do on your phone, you'll find on your desktop, and whatever you do on your desktop.
I've just been working with it on my phone. I haven't turned it on my computer, so.
And you don't have to. You just log into their page, and your data is there.
There you go.
Cool.
And now another point, a major point that I want to give everybody though too is a lot of times when you're looking, you look at the topo. We look at the topo all the time,
right?
Right. Especially when we're trying to find benches or areas to go through. But I'm going to tell you this, and here's a point, guys. Understand if you have not had boots on the ground, when you get there, that country's going to be bigger and steeper than you thought. All right.
No doubt.
So
believe me.
Yeah, and don't let it intimidate you, man. I mean, you're going to get out there and you're going to look around and go, oh, my God. If you've done your work ahead of time and you have a plan, don't let it intimidate you. Just get that you have that offline map on there, mark where you're at, and get off the trail. Start hunting your parallel, get through your ridges, find your drainages, work that, and use your nose, use your eyes, use your ears, and you will find those animals. If you don't find them in a day and a half, get the heck out of Dodge and go find another area. Okay?
Man, I did so much of that last year. But when I was hunting by myself, I just went through random, places, and it's like, oh, I'm just going to walk in that direction, trying to, find my way here and there. And it's like, man, I got through some nasty stuff, but I was like, okay, I can eventually get through this, and then I'll get on the other side of it, and talk about getting to know the area way better and understanding it way better when you're actually the one walking in front and not following somebody.
Right.
Whew, that was like the learning curve for me on the, at least, knowledge of the hunting area. It was just exponential that year.
Now, another point I want to go to is, and we've talked about, now we did not go into how to e-scout. That would be a whole podcast in itself.
No
but
doubt.
We talked about some major points of some things that you guys can do with that. But the other thing I talked about in the 2 ways is also to get boots on the ground. And it's real critical to know what to look for if you get to go out there early ahead of time. So if we go out in August, Chav, and we're doing some scouting, we looking for bulls?
No, not really. We're looking for the food sources and trails and, any fresh droppings. That way we know they're in that area. Though we run into a lot of bulls.
Yeah, in our area, we've run into some there.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I like it a whole lot better when we find cows, right?
Right.
And that's the tracks you guys are looking for, man. If you're seeing, and it's hard to tell at that time because, people say, well, if you're looking for a herd of cows, look for a lot of track. Well, remember, these guys are bachelor running too, and they're in groups of 9, 10, 13. So it can be a lot too. There's a difference in the size of the track between a bull and a cow. There's a big difference, right? Bet. Unless it's a young bull. And you can tell just by those sizes. If you haven't done that and been able to tell, what I want you to do is when you're out, and you've got boots on the ground, take your hand, man. Take your hand and put it on top of that track. Because I'm telling you, a bull track will be wider than your hand. If I was to take all this and I was to put my hand down, this part of it right inside there, down in, that bull track will be larger than that right there. Where a cow track would probably be this right about here. Okay? But that bull track is going to be bigger. All right? So that gives you a little bit of a tip there on that. But absolutely, when we go scout, we are not looking for elk. We're looking for sign of elk.
Chav hit it on the head. Chav hit it right on the head. We're looking for food source. They all slaves to their bellies.
Right.
And cows.
Yep, absolutely. And if you find old rubs, now here's the thing. When guys, we get a lot of guys say, well, I found a whole bunch of rubs. I found on these large trees, there must have been 30 or 40 up on top of this hillside. And he said, they were in dark areas and stuff. In fact, we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. There's a difference between rubs, and we're going to talk about that hopefully in our mailbox coming up here. But there's a difference between what you're finding in those dark up there on the side of hills. Those are those early season bulls together rubbing velvet, rather than when you get down inside parks or around parks and you're seeing trees blown up, smaller trees and those junipers or those saplings. That's bulls, man, that are going nuts, demonstrating and just ripping up. I mean, they'll destroy small saplings. That's rut. That's rut rubs right there. Okay, they're really getting after it. So there's a little bit of difference when you're looking for those, but they will rut in the same place there. Okay. So that's pretty much, if there's some things that you guys want to know any more than that, send questions in. When we start getting those, we'll hit them, man. But really,
I think another one you had down there is really good, Joe's make sure you use your nose. You can really smell them critters, man. If you'll open yourself up, I mean, it's going to smell a lot like licorice, and when they and as soon as you hit that scent line, man, turn yourself into the wind, because that's where they're headed.
And that's a great point. Early season elk smell a lot like licorice, man. Yeah. That's the only way I could explain it. We have we call it anise, right?
Yeah.
Anise. It's the name of the plant.
Yeah.
Musky smell.
It's a plant that has that kind of licorice smell, and those elk have that kind of sweet, musky smell. I compare it to cattle. But later on in the season, when you get that more rank smell on those bulls, it's going to smell more like cattle, more dirty, musky is the only way I could call it there. but yeah, most definitely, man. Use your nose. Use your nose in early season. Use your nose during the season. And if you had a nose like mine, you'd use it all the daggum time out there, right? Okay.
Hey, quick parenthesis, Joe. Any updates on the grandchild?
So, yeah, I left for a few minutes, and really, we've got mixed reports right now because of HIPAA. They would not tell us anything, so we're waiting for our daughter to call us, man. So we think somebody let it out and that the baby's been born, but we're still waiting for all of our confirmation. So
Awesome.
just keeping our fingers crossed.
It's crazy how they got y'all in the dark like that, man.
Yeah, it is. So hey, Brother Gonzalez with a Z, man, why don't you take us to the ElkBros mailbox?
Yes, sir. So we got Mr. Landon Innes from Arvada, Colorado. He's asking, how are the thermals affected in late season hunts where, when the weather is cold?
Yeah.
He's saying hunting Colorado, 4th rifle, November 18th to the 22nd.
So the big part of this question is how does cold weather affect thermals, right? And basically, guys, it's just like if you've seen dry ice, okay? You put dry ice into a bowl and that fog comes out and it's cold. What does it do? It falls, man, right? So if you have cold conditions, wintry conditions, and remember, there's a difference between wind and thermals. Thermals are the air falling or rising. And what happens is to a certain level, if that air is not warmed up, it's still falling. And if you have snow on the ground and you have cold conditions, it keeps that. It's just like what you were talking about when we get real cold rains, that drizzling rain.
After rains,
It just knocks
it won't turn
down.
It won't turn and come up. It won't, because there's no warmth to rise it.
It keeps them falling, man.
That's right.
It has to take for that sun to warm up an area, to warm up maybe trees or rocks in the area enough to cause that thermal to start doing a rise. It's just like a hot air balloon, man. If you had a hot air balloon and you kept cold air inside of it, it's not coming off the ground. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys are going to be 34, 35 degrees all day from daylight, you won't have much of a thermal.
It'll be falling. It'll be going down below you.
It'll be falling below you the whole time.
Yeah.
So everything above you is lanyap.
Right.
I mean, shoot, that you'll be worried about everything below you the whole time because that air is going to keep falling.
Yeah, it's a little bit different type of deal, man. You got to worry more about the wind, and you do have to worry about the thermal. But all you got to do is, hey, guys, if you keep your scent checkers with you, you'll learn a lot about thermals. Okay, learn a whole lot about them, man. If you don't have 2 scent checkers with you, you're not using them enough. Okay, so make sure that you use that. I hope, Landon, that helps you out there, man, in Arvada.
And Adrian Anaya has a similar question, I think, that goes together with that one. So he's saying, I'm going for my 3rd year, 2nd season rifle bull elk OTC in southern Colorado. Question is, to start the day out, early hike in the dark, should I concentrate on working from the bottom up or get up high and work my way from there? Second part, vice versa, for the evening part. So I think this has got to do with the thermals as well, Joe.
Well, it does, but look at what he's talking about. He's hunting rifle season, second season.
Very true.
Yeah. So actually, dude, you want to be up high points.
Get up top. Yeah.
And you want to have your optics, and you want to let your optics do the work for you. Don't worry about bottoms coming up or that. You're doing too much work if you're doing that, and you're putting yourself in the trees where you're not able to see things there. Find those areas up high where you can glass and you can see into 2 different drainages on each side, and make sure you have the clothing to be able to be up there for a while. Don't dress in it when you're hiking up there. Do the old Chavez thing. You always put extra clothes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'll sweat too quickly. So.
Me too.
I barely take anything when I start off, but once we slow down and or set up, put some warm clothes or you're going to freeze to death.
Yeah, and you got to have those. So, put that stuff on so that you can spend some time there and let your eyes do your hunting for you. Then you can actually, because at that time of year, I mean, you're talking, second season rifle. I'm trying to remember the exact dates. I don't have those exactly with me there, but I'm not sure if they're, I think it's in November at that time, I believe. And the later you get, the more that those animals now are falling back into a routine. They're feeding, they're going to bed, they're getting water. So when you get them on the glasses, you can actually work what they're doing. You can make a plan and you can get up and get a good shot on those guys. So you can get
Adrian,
the wind
try to
in your
find
favor.
you a park below those ridges. Try to find you a park, a nice, beautiful park below those ridges. Those cows are going to be in there all morning with those bulls feeding up there after the big peak of the rut. I'm telling you, if you'll find you some parks below some ridges, you'll find some bulls in there.
And it depends if you're looking for a raghorn or if you're looking for
Right.
a mature bull, he
Right.
won't be with those cows. They're starting to pair up and bachelor up. So
That's
it just
right.
depends on what you're looking for. But that's what I would do, Adrian.
You
Good.
bet.
That's a great question, man.
You betcha.
Who's up next?
Want me to
there?
go? So we got Mr. Randy Fritz from Missoula. Is that Montana?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hey, I got a picture
And-
of Randy, man. I wish I had that with so I could show you guys. Randy,
Come
and Randy, I'm not sure how old you are, man, but this guy's he's a young buck that's been out there and sent me a picture of him with a beautiful bull that he killed with the bow, getting it done. He's got
That's
a
awesome.
lot of hunts in the windshield. I'm excited for Randy Fritz. So, what
Way
was his
cool.
question?
Congrats.
Yeah.
So he's saying I'm planning on going on a 9-day elk hunt in Montana to an area my stepdad has hunted in the past. I have been once, and the majority of the area is rolling hills with thick lodgepole timber, and almost every low spot has a pond of water of some sort. So catching the elk on their way to the water will be difficult. I'm just wondering what tips you may have for hunting an area like that where there isn't really big ridges to get on above the elk, and they could be anywhere.
Cover ground, baby.
Yeah, you need to cover some ground and just make sure you got the wind at your nose and walk into the wind. And then if you have a lot of little rolling hills, you never know what's on the other side. Just be prepared. Don't skyline yourself as you get near the top.
Peek over the top. Man.
Yep, peek over the top.
Get on your belly, peek over the top.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Joe was actually talking about that just on our last podcast.
Yeah, skyline.
Exactly that. Just be mindful of what's behind you as well to make sure that you got cover.
They're gonna like that lodgepole timber too to bed in. So I mean,
Right.
you're gonna find them in and around those lodgepole areas that are having, that's their bedding area. Probably more than likely those lodgepole areas. So
Okay, we got a girl.
Congrats!
Yeah, we got us a girl.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo-hoo. God is good.
Oh,
Congrats,
Ellie,
Grandpa.
Ellie.
Hey,
Oh,
Grandpa
man.
Joe.
Abuelo.
Woo.
That's awesome, brother.
It wasn't
Congrats.
easy. Ash had some little bit of trauma, had some tearing, and had to do some repair on her. And so that took a while. God bless her, man. She's feeling some pain right now.
She gonna be all right, Joe. We get that
Congratulations,
epidural
brother.
on her, she'll be fine, buddy.
Yeah,
She's
she'll be
gonna
good.
be great, man.
Doing
Congrats,
good.
brother. A lot of emotions,
Uh-huh.
for sure, man. But that's super normal. I think my wife
Yeah.
went through a similar
mine
situation as well, and man,
Yeah,
it's,
that's a normal situation.
You
yeah,
did, buddy.
man. You got a healthy baby. You got a happy
Yeah.
family, brother. We're with you, man.
Oh,
Big
man.
hugs from here.
Hugs from everybody from H-Town and above, baby.
Man, I tell you, just to grab my wife and to know that the three of them are good, man. That's all that
Yeah.
mattered. And I mean,
That's
we
it.
really, When it went dark, we got a little worried and scared there, but
Y'all got to see it live here on Elk Bros.
That's right.
Ellie
so
Barbara,
cool, Joe. You're
Joe,
so-
the Grandpa Joe
Grandpa Joe, man.
day on
So
June
awesome.
24th.
What's the baby's name,
2020.
Joe?
Ellie Barbara
Ellie
Garcia.
Barbara.
Yeah.
That's so
My
awesome,
daughter
man.
is Ashley. My son-in-law is Dominic. So it's Dominic, Ashley, and Ellie, and
That's too cool,
they're
brother.
new family, man.
Congratulations.
So thank you.
New
Thank you.
family. New
That's
It was
parents.
awesome.
growing.
Yeah.
That's so cool,
That's awesome.
guys.
All right. So, Randy, I hope she grows up and gets one like you had, man. Are y'all still on Randy? Did you get him covered, or what are we doing
I
here?
think so, man. We told him that, those elk are going to be around that lodgepole timber, especially bedding and stuff like that. And those rolling hills, don't skyline yourself. They're going to get in those little ridges and stuff. Make sure you peek over them before you. But you got to cover ground in that country. I mean, they don't have a whole lot of high country, so you got to put the boots on the ground and get after it, man.
And I checked his dates, and he's right around the 22nd of September. So, Randy, man, you are,
prime time.
You're prime time, man. You don't need water. You don't need to wait. Don't wait. Don't
Just
be
listen.
passive. Be aggressive, and
just
let's
listen for 'em.
I don't know what kind of calling you do or how good your calling is, but man, get it ready because that's prime time to work all of that and to work those animals, and you're going to do great, man. And enjoy the moment, learn from it, listen to all these different episodes, pick up stuff from us, keep sending these emails into us. We'll answer everything we can. But the country with those rolling hills is a lot like what we hunt. The thicker, the better that you get in there, and that thick lodgepole timber, man. So you can get those tight setups, bud. So make it happen, man. Okay. Hey, Luis, I'm going to take this one over on the bottom here because Mike had sent this in to me. Mike Wilson from Ogden. That's our brother Mike over there in Ogden, Utah, man. And this guy is, he is just getting after it. I think Mike is my age. Maybe even a little bit older. Mike, don't get mad at me if you're not. But it's funny because he's listening to the Elk Bros and he's like, man, I know that I can do this at this time in my life, and he's just getting after it. I mean, he's doing a lot of cool things. So one of his questions was, he's been out scouting, man. He said that he's been in an area with pole-sized trees and many, many rubs, like 30 or 40 and a half acre, of all ages, these trees, and a lot of poop in there, droppings, I guess, but almost no lower vegetation, just some kind of, he's asking, is this just some kind of staging area? Is this where they will be in September? Gilbert shaking his head, no, right? Or will they likely be down a little lower where there's more feed? Gilbert shaking his head, yes. So, Gilbert.
Mike's got it going on, brother. He's got the right kind of ideas.
Yeah, he's thinking right. And this is exactly what we talked about before. What you're looking at, what you found is you found a bachelor room, man. And these guys are rubbing all their velvet off. They're just getting every tree in that area around there. They're getting that velvet off, and they're getting ready for what's coming up. And you're absolutely right. Now, what I'm going to tell you, if this is a dark enough area that gets used as a bedding area later, and there's a possibility of that. I mean, if it's near where the cows are, there's a huge possibility of that. That is a great area to get in on one of those midday hunts if that's where they're at, okay? But what you're seeing right now is probably where they're not going to be, and you're absolutely right about where they're going. And his second question kind of related to this. He said, when scouting, I find a lot of elk sign amongst the deadfall and then small pockets with no deadfall and tons of sign. Is there a strategy for hunting through that downed wood? In other words, do you still try to work your way towards the elk quickly? Well, not so quickly, or do you play more stubborn and try to get them to come out? I'm talking serious jackstraw, but lots of sign. So far, I'm encountering this situation as typical in these woods, so he knows that the elk are in there, all right? So what do you guys think about that?
Chav, what do you think, brother?
Well, it sounds like it's a pretty thick area where they can bed almost year round. if they have their food source nearby, if they have water nearby, and if they have somewhere where they can escape, an escape route, it sounds like it'd be a good area to try out.
And if he's finding a lot of sign, go ahead, Gilbert.
Yeah, I think he's found a bedding area.
Mm-hmm.
And the only time we want to go in the bedroom is kind of the last resort, because you don't want to blow them all out of there. I would try to find the areas between the bedding area that they're going to and from, and try to catch them. Yeah, the corridors. Mm-hmm. That's where I'd try to get after them at. You are not lying. Chav and I came through a bedroom one time. It took us 3 hours to get through it because we was coming down hills. All deadfalls look like that. I mean, that's really tough hunting. Not to mention, I'm not the most graceful person in the world, and when I fall and bust my tail, I get a little aggravated. So I would definitely want to find those corridors between the bedding area. And look, I'm not saying don't hunt the bedding area. You down to your last couple of days, and you got to make it happen. And you got the right wind. That might be something I want to do. But I don't want to go in there and burn them up my first time if I can, get them on those transition areas before they go through the bedding.
Well, and you bring a good point too, in that if you know that they're in there and there's a lot of sign. So one of your questions is, do you get stubborn, try to pull them out? Well, it's not so much stubborn. It's a great midday hunt. If you set up 150 yards, 200 yards from where they're bedding in one of those areas, and you start putting on a little bit of a scenario to try to pull that, because once if that bull has cows bedded in that thick area right there, he knows where they're at, and then he'll use that time to recover, to get a little food, to go get some water, or if he discovers that there's another hot cow or another cow in the area, he'll go off to pick up that cow. So that's a good opportunity. I tell you what, dude, Mike, if you find those areas, you better be waypointing those areas. And what I would do is I would then waypoint the water source and the feed areas that I'm also finding a lot of that sign where they're feeding in there at night. You do that, you start to triangulate a little bit. Now, during the rut, bulls move their cows a lot around, but there might be a lot of them that will use that. And like we've said, we find them sometimes going to the same bedding areas, if not every day, every 3 days in some of the same places, right?
Right. They just make a rotation.
Yeah, especially if they're not bumped. So you start getting those ideas where those animals are moving. Those corridors from food to bed, like Gilbert's talking about, are prime time, or calling them off out of those bedding areas. And like Gilbert said, if we end up in a situation where nothing is happening and it's dead quiet and we're not seeing animals, we will start hunting through those areas slow, moving slow, not moving fast through them, cow calling and looking for a bull coming in silent. And Luis has been with me when we've done something like that on top of a ridge. And that year I shot a bull 15 yards probably. It wasn't 10 minutes later, they shot a bear coming into the cow call in that same area, because that bear could smell the elk in that area there. Mm-hmm. So, man, I tell you what, Mike, you are doing incredible, man, and you're learning so much about elk behavior. And you've just done it from listening to a bunch of yahoos on a podcast and getting out there and doing it, man. So that just shows you, and all you guys out there listening, you can, like Chav always says, lower and flatten that learning curve through the stuff that we teach you, man.
One of the things you said that day, Joe, where we got both the elk and the bear, right before actually seeing the elk, you mentioned something as like, hey guys, this is the perfect scenario. We got the wind in our face, the sun in our backs, and we're going through thick timber, and it's, we got a good canopy above us. So and I remember clearly you saying that, and right. Then it wasn't 10 minutes later where we saw that elk coming in.
And you know what, Luis? That's why it's so great to have you on this show and guys that send questions, because I have not stated that in a single podcast, but you're exactly right. That's something that I look for to do. If I can get the wind in my face, the sun at my back, and I'm working through, it is hard for any elk looking at me in the shadows and the sun coming at them to tell what I am. It's so hard. It's just as hard for us.
Right.
You know,
No doubt.
yeah, but the good thing is we have a brim of a hat that we can sometimes block that, right? And that, I'll tell you another thing too. When you are moving through in the dark, okay, when you're moving through in the dark and you're trying to see what's ahead of you, a lot of times if you're using a headlamp, and people have asked me this, we want our headlamps pointed down at the ground. Like if we're out calling before daylight, we never want to be looking around with our headlamps. Whenever we're bugling and we call, we turn our headlamps off because
or make it a red light or a green light.
I don't want anything shining in any direction. So the other thing is a lot of times when you have that lamp on, you only see what's illuminated around you. If you'll turn that lamp on or cover it, you'll start to see a light filtering through trees, and you can see open areas ahead of you, and you can see the trail better when you cover that light. And once you see where you're going, you can let it down so you can back down at the ground. It's just a little hint, to tell you as far as that helps you out in those situations. So that's an incredible point that you brought up there, Luis. Yeah. Good job, man.
I remember that vividly from that day. It's just minutes after you said it. Yeah, we had an opportunity.
Awesome.
Guys, Mike seems like he's got everything going in the right direction, Joe. All of his thoughts and his points and everything are spot on. This guy's he's going to kill a really good bull this year. So
yeah, good luck.
Mike, please stay in touch with us, man, and send us some pics of the fruits of your labor. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. Mike's a great guy.
Well, we couldn't have topped the show off any better, Joe, than the announcement of your granddaughter and Ellie Barbara Garcia. I mean, unbelievable. God's blessed you and blessed your family. And it's been fantastic, a fantastic show. We've been waiting here with bated breath on whether baby Ellie was going to show up or not. And obviously she has. And we've endured a lot of pain and agony. And now the celebration shall commence. So, if Carl would be here, he'd say, well, Joe, here's to us and those like us. Damn few left. That's what he'd say.
Amen,
I guarantee
brother.
you. Huh?
Amen, brother.
Yeah. Guys, again, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe, rate, and review. You have to go to Apple Podcast or iTunes to review us, and you can check out more elk hunting content at ElkBros.com. Just remember, if any of our listeners out there would like their questions answered on the show, just send your question to info@ElkBros.com. That's info@ElkBros.com. Fantastic show tonight, guys. Chav, Joe, appreciate you guys being with us. As always, Luis, always great to have you, brother. And as we keep opening the country up a little more and still having a social distance a little bit, I'm gonna kiss my wife and she's gonna kiss me. And I guarantee you we're gonna keep a broadhead sharp and a powder dry. And we'll see you guys next week right here on Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Happy birthday, Ellie.
Peace.
Happy birthday,
Happy
Ellie.
birthday.